Your parents told you to save money. Put it in the bank. Be responsible. Build a nest egg. And if you've been trying to do that, you've probably noticed something deeply frustrating. It doesn't actually work anymore. Not because you're not disciplined enough, not because you're spending frivolously, but because the math has fundamentally changed. Saving money used to be a path to security. Now, it's a path to falling behind. Let me show you why. Emily is 29, lives outside Boston, works as a project coordinator at a healthcare company, makes $58,000 a year. She's been told her whole life to be a saver, and she is. She's actually good at it. After taxes, health insurance, and her 401k contribution, she takes home about $3,200 a month. Rent for her one-bedroom apartment in Quincy, $1,650. It's not luxury, it's just what a safe, clean apartment costs within reasonable commuting distance. Student loans, $310 a month. She went to a state school. This is the cheap version of student debt. Car payment, $285. She bought a used Honda CR-V 3 years ago. Insurance, $130. Phone, internet, utilities, $220. Groceries and essentials, $450. She's not eating out much. She meal preps. Gas, car maintenance, miscellaneous, $200. We're at $3,245. She's over budget by $45. So she's careful, very careful. But here's the thing. Emily saves. Every month, she manages to put away $150, sometimes $200 if she's really strict with herself. She's proud of this. She has $8,400 in her savings account. Took her 4 years to build that up, and it's worth less than when she started. Here's what happened to Emily's savings over the last 4 years. In 2021, she had about $2,000 saved up. She was earning 0.05% interest at her bank, basically nothing, but that was normal. Over 4 years, she added $150 a month on average. That's $7,200 deposited. With the microscopic interest, her total is now $8,400. Sounds like progress, right? Except inflation over those 4 years averaged about 5.2% annually. Compounded, that's a cumulative increase of about 22%. What cost $100 in 2021 now costs $122. So her $8,400 in today's money has the purchasing power of about $6,885 in 2021 dollars. She saved $7,200 and lost $315 in real value. She did everything right. She was disciplined. She sacrificed. She skipped dinners out, avoided trips, bought the cheaper groceries, and the system quietly took money from her anyway. This is what I mean when I say saving doesn't work anymore. Let's go back one generation to understand how fundamentally this has changed. In 1985, if you put money in a standard savings account, you'd earn around 5.5% to 8% interest depending on the bank. Inflation that year was about 3.5%. So if you saved $1,000, you made $55 to $80 in interest, and inflation cost you $35. You came out ahead by $20 to $45 just for doing nothing. Your money grew in real terms while sitting in the bank. By 1995, savings account rates were around 2.5 to 4%. Inflation was still low, around 2.8%, so you were losing, but slowly. Then 2020 happened. Interest rates went to nearly zero, 0.01% to 0.05% at most banks. Inflation stayed low for a bit, then exploded. In 2022, inflation hit 8%. Savings account interest was still at 0.05%. If you had $10,000 in savings, you earned $5 in interest and lost $800 to inflation. Your purchasing power dropped by $795 in 1 year. By 2024, inflation cooled to around 3.4%, and some high-yield savings accounts finally started offering 4 to 5%, so the gap closed a bit. But for the average person, like Emily, who banks at a regular institution, she's still getting maybe 0.50%, while real inflation, the cost of rent, food, insurance, the things she actually buys, is running higher than the official number. The game is rigged. This didn't happen by accident. After the 2008 financial crisis, central banks around the world, led by the Federal Reserve in the US and the European Central Bank, dropped interest rates to near zero to stimulate the economy. The idea was if borrowing is cheap, businesses will borrow and invest. People will borrow and spend. The economy will grow. And it worked. Kind of. The stock market recovered, real estate prices soared, corporations thrived. But there was a side effect nobody talks about. Savers got destroyed. When interest rates are zero, banks have no incentive to pay you for your deposits. They can borrow from the Fed for almost nothing, so why pay you 3% or 4%? So savings account rates collapsed, and they stayed collapsed for over a decade. Meanwhile, the cost of everything else kept rising. Housing, healthcare, education, food, all going up. So if you were responsible and kept your money in a savings account like you were told, you got quietly robbed. Not by a criminal, by monetary policy. And here's the kicker. The people who owned assets, stocks, real estate, businesses got massively richer during this period. The S&P 500 went from around 1,100 in 2011 to over 4,700 by 2024. If you had $10,000 invested in 2011, it became about $42,000. If you had $10,000 in a savings account, it became $10,080 and lost purchasing power every single year. The system rewarded people who already had enough money to take risk and punished people who were trying to be safe. Emily didn't know this. She was just doing what she was taught. Here's why this is so insidious. Saving money feels responsible. It feels smart. It feels like you're doing the adult thing. When Emily looks at her savings account and sees $8,400, her brain registers that as success. She worked hard for that. She denied herself things to build that cushion. And she's right to feel proud. The discipline is real. But the outcome is broken. Because while she's been saving, her rent has increased by $250 a month over 4 years. Her car insurance went up by $35 a month. Groceries cost 20% more than they did in 2021. Her savings gave her a small buffer, but it didn't give her progress. And this creates a psychological problem. People who do everything right still feel like they're losing. So they either blame themselves, I'm just not good enough with money, or they give up entirely and figure, what's the point? Both responses are tragic because the issue isn't them, it's the system.
Let's do the long-term math on what Emily is actually giving up. She's been saving $150 a month for 4 years. That's $7,200 deposited. If instead of putting that money in a savings account at 0.05%, she had put it into a basic S&P 500 index fund, earning an average of 10% per year, here's what would have happened. After 4 years, she'd have about $10,200. Instead, she has $8,400. That's an $1,800 difference just from choosing the wrong place to store her money. Now let's project forward. If Emily continues saving $150 a month in her savings account for the next 20 years at 0.50% interest, she'll have about $37,800. If she puts that same $150 a month into an index fund averaging 10%, she'll have about $114,000. That's a $76,200 difference. She's not being stupid, she's being careful, and that caution is costing her a house down payment. Now, I know what you're thinking. The stock market is risky. What if it crashes? Fair point. Let's talk about that. Yes, the stock market goes up and down. In 2022, the S&P 500 dropped about 18%. That's terrifying if you're watching your account balance fall. But here's the thing. Over any 20-year period in history, the S&P 500 has never had a negative return. Even if you invested at the worst possible time, right before a crash, you still came out ahead 2 decades later. Meanwhile, a savings account has a 100% guaranteed real loss when inflation is higher than the interest rate. You're not avoiding risk by keeping money in savings. You're just choosing a different kind of risk, the certainty of losing purchasing power. And here's the part that really matters. Emily doesn't need her $8,400 in savings to be liquid tomorrow. She needs maybe $2,000 for emergencies. The rest is just sitting there, eroding. If she kept $2,000 in cash and invested the other $6,400, she'd still have her safety net, but the excess would actually be working for her. Instead, it's working against her. This problem isn't unique to the United States. In Germany, if you're earning 50,000 euros a year and saving 200 euros a month, you're facing the exact same issue. Most German savings accounts pay around 0.10% to 1.00% interest. Inflation in 2023 was around 6%. In 2024, it dropped to about 2.4%. Your 200 euros a month saved in a traditional Sparkasse account is losing real value every year. Meanwhile, the DAX, Germany's index, has grown from around 6,000 in 2011 to over 17,000 by 2024, nearly triple. In France, the story is similar. The Livret A popular tax-free savings account, paid 3% in 2023, better than most U.S. accounts, but inflation was running at 4.9%, still a loss. In the UK, ISAs are offering around 4 to 5% now, but inflation hit 10.4% in early 2023. Even with recent improvements, savers spent years getting crushed. This is a global phenomenon. Central banks everywhere chose the same strategy: protect asset prices, sacrifice savers. Here's what people who understand this system do differently. They don't keep large amounts of cash sitting idle. They understand that cash has exactly one job: liquidity for emergencies and short-term needs. Everything beyond that gets invested. Not in risky speculative assets, in boring, diversified, long-term index funds. Let me give you a different version of Emily. Meet Rachel. Same age, same income, same city. Rachel keeps $3,000 in her savings account. That's her emergency fund. 3 months of absolute bare minimum expenses. Everything else she can save, $150 a month, goes directly into a Roth IRA invested in a target date index fund. She's been doing this for 4 years. She now has $3,000 in cash and about $10,200 invested. Total, $13,200. Emily has $8,400. Rachel is $4,800 ahead. Same income, same discipline, different understanding of how money works. And here's the critical part. Rachel didn't take crazy risks. She didn't day trade. She didn't bet on meme stocks. She just refused to let inflation slowly destroy her savings. The uncomfortable truth is, the financial system is no longer designed to reward savers. It's designed to reward investors. Saving was the right strategy in 1985. It's the wrong strategy in 2025. And nobody told Emily this. Not her parents, not her high school economics teacher, not her bank. Her bank actively benefits from her not knowing this, because her $8,400 sitting in their account at 0.05% interest is money they lend out to other people at 7% on a car loan or 22% on a credit card. They make the spread, she takes the loss. This isn't a conspiracy, it's just how the system works now, and if you don't understand it, you lose by default. So, what does Emily do now? First, she stops blaming herself. She did nothing wrong. The rules changed and nobody updated the instruction manual. Second, she redefines what savings means. Cash savings, $2,000 to $3,000, enough to handle an unexpected car repair or medical bill, kept in the highest yield savings account she can find, ideally 4% or more, which does exist now at online banks. Everything beyond that, invested. Roth IRA if she's eligible, taxable brokerage account if not, target date fund or simple S&P 500 index fund, automated monthly contributions. She doesn't need to become a stock picker, she doesn't need to watch CNBC, she just needs to stop letting her money sit in a place where it's guaranteed to lose value. Third, she adjusts her psychology. Investing isn't risky gambling, keeping everything in cash is. The real risk is being 60 years old and realizing that 30 years of disciplined saving left her with less purchasing power than she started with. Here's the macro reality that nobody wants to say out loud. The era of risk-free returns is over. For decades, you could be conservative and still get ahead. Park your money in a savings account or a CD, earn 5 to 8% and sleep well at night. That world is gone, and it's not coming back. Central banks have made it clear they will prioritize economic growth and asset prices over the returns available to savers, which means if you want your money to grow, you have to accept some level of market exposure. Not reckless exposure, not speculative bets, just basic, diversified, long-term index funds. Saving money used to work because the system supported it. Now the system punishes it. That's not your fault, but it is your reality. And once you see it, you have a choice. You can keep doing what you were taught and hope things go back to the way they were, or you can adapt to the world as it actually is. Emily's $8,400 isn't a failure. It's proof she has discipline. But discipline without strategy is just effort without results. The same discipline that built that savings account can build real wealth. She just has to redirect it. If this changed how you think about your savings, consider subscribing. I break down how money actually works every week. No hype, no gimmicks, just reality. Thanks for watching.